Welcome, everybody. I'm Nicki Mayo, president of the Baltimore Association of Black Journalists, and thank you for joining us on a interesting weather Saturday. But today we are going to talk about making it work at home, because most of our jobs have kind of transitioned to, we got to make it work at home, guys. And for some of our mediums, like if you're always been print, always been online, making it work from home is not that much of a challenge. But if you happen to be in the broadcast arena, it can be a little daunting because there's so many electrical things that our companies, our stations buy, and they may be tough to duplicate. And as people are finding out, there are ways to duplicate some of these things. Everything from lower thirds to multiple interview shows. Our guests today are making it work. Even maybe some tips on how to get a man on the street interview when you can't go on the street. We'll figure that out. So joining us today, and hopefully you'll see them, we have, I'll do the ladies first. We have Elsa M. She is host of Midday Maryland. Hopefully you guys have seen her on ABC2 or WHUR-TV. And I'll let them also do their elevator pitches so I don't scramble up too badly their bios. We have, Karen, are you there or what's the deal, hon?
Hey, I am here. So, hey, everybody. Sorry I couldn't join you, on video. I'm hoping to get back before this webinar is over. But yeah, so I used to work for WBAL, and last August I moved to Indianapolis to work for an NBC station here. So I do a little bit of anchoring, reporting. So this session is really interesting because I do have some of the tips that I have been learning as all of us go along on how to make it work when you work, out of an apartment with limited resources.
Elsa, go ahead and introduce yourself, and then I'll have Harold introduce himself.
Sure. Well, I'm glad to be a part of BABJ now. I was one of the founding members of RABJ in Rochester, New York, when we kicked off. And now I'm going to age myself. What year was that?
2004, 2004, 5-ish, yeah.
I think
Really?
yeah. I was a wee 10-year-old at the time. So I was a reporter anchor up there for many years. Went to Louisville, Kentucky, back to Rochester, New York. I got out of the business completely for about 7 years. And then by that time I had already moved down here. And so I started at Channel 2 when they launched a lifestyle show, because I knew I wanted to make the switch to something more personality driven and more upbeat. And so we launched that in September of 2017. And I've known Ms. Nicki since she was a wee cub reporter as well in our upstate New York days, freezing our bottoms off. So.
There you go. And taking the whole throughway tie, let's go back over to Buffalo, where Harold Fisher actually worked once before, and that's our connection, but he's also one of the former presidents of the Association of Black Media Workers. Harold, what are you doing now?
Well, as you know, I'm the anchor and host for the Daily Drum on WHUR FM, the Howard University Radio Network. I've been there since, wow, they brought me back in 2007. That was one of my first gigs back in the late 80s. I was there from 87 to 88, then went into television, and I worked for Channel 2, of course, in Buffalo. That was our Buffalo connection back in the late 90s. Shout out to Rochester, And my last gig in television was at Fox 45 Morning News. We started that program in 2001, and I left in 2006, or it left me. You know how that goes. So, and did a little work for Governor Ehrlich, and then HUR called me back, and that's where I've been ever since. So.
Okie dokie. All right, guys. So I'm gonna unmute Karen again. So let's jump on into it. How have your jobs changed? You don't have to go too far in the weeds, because I think we're all kind of stuck on, we got to do everything from home. But how have your jobs changed as far as doing it all from home and trying to deliver the same quality television and radio products that you have done in the past? Let's go to Elsa, since I can see you.
Hey. Okay. Well, I think for us, it was, for everyone, it was just so overnight, so when I started my career, I was one-man band, and I was like, I'll never do that again. But I guess I'm doing it again. It's a different situation because now instead of going out in the field and shooting my own stuff, I'm in my studio shooting my own stuff, and my studio happens to be my living room. I think just the immediacy of everything, it wasn't like anyone had time to prepare. It wasn't like we said, oh, well, we know this is coming, so like, let's just get all our gear. So I was surprised to find that there were a lot of things that I just had that were readily available, where I had the external mic ready to go. I had the lights ready to go. I can connect. I'm sorry if you guys can hear my dog. He's has no respect, but I'm going to try and connect.
Gotcha. We see it.
Okay, this is way too much of me. Hold on, let me try and.
We got two Elsas.
Yeah, I don't even want that much of me.
It's like Frozen.
How do I switch the view?
To reverse it so you can see.
Yeah, I should be able to do that on Zoom, right, or no?
I haven't tried that. I've only tried it when I'm just talking to somebody and it hits.
Okay, so I'm just going to show you. Okay, I'll try it that way. So I've got these like box lights. I do a YouTube show. Well, I was doing a YouTube show with a girlfriend of mine. It's now a podcast, the Eden Elsa Show. Okay, I'm going to turn that off because, again, too much of me. So I stole that from her right away. I got the external mic. One thing that I've been noticing with Zoom, and I'm just going to jump right into it, so stop me if you don't want me to go this far, Nicki, is when I've been recording for our show, because we've been doing Zoom interviews, it looks fine when you're recording initially, but then when it tapes, sometimes it can be washed out. Have you guys ever noticed that when you're like recording it? Yeah, so that's been one of those things where you're just happy to be able to do the show remotely, which is great. But at the same time, the quality has suffered, I feel like, in terms of the look of it, not necessarily the content of it. But I'm working with a great team, so we've been able to finesse that and sort of work with the colors so that we're not, washed out.
About being washed out. Is it like a second generation washed out is that we're talking about? Like fuzzy? What's going on?
No. I mean like pale. Like I look like I got the Rona, I'm not trying to look like I got the Rona. I'm trying to, you know what I mean? So is that, and then also, so I'm recording Zoom, but then when I am doing the ins and outs for the show, that's on my phone. So that video compared to Zoom video has been different. The lighting hasn't changed. I'm in the same place, but just sort of syncing that. Audio wise, it hasn't been so bad. Like I said, I have this little external mic. I have a lapel mic that goes to my phone. But even some things like that, like when you're trying to record your voice and you've got something in the jack, you can't then hear the person. So I've found some workarounds, if that makes sense, but everything's a little convoluted. I think it's just more so being patient with yourself, figuring out what is gonna work, what's not gonna work. I'm so glad that this is happening now and not back in 2003, because there would be no way that we'd be able to still do, especially a show like mine, every day.
Zoom was not even around.
It wouldn't happen.
Question.
Go for it.
In your video settings, did you make the adjustment where to touch up your appearance?
Oh, you know what? I just found out about that because I would have been used it.
There's a button you can just, if you check that, it kind of tunes the light, the glare down a little bit. Yeah. So check that out and see how that look, what change that makes.
I just found that out this week. My AP, thank you, Sally. My AP told me about it. But I was like, yo, where were you like 4 weeks ago? It sort of smooths everything over a little bit. I want them to add something where it just adds your makeup on for you too. Where it's like
and do you have a green screen?
I don't have a green screen. So that's the thing. So when this happened, remember it was like Thursday, they said all the kids aren't going back to school on Monday, right? And then we went to work on Monday. And then when I went to work on Monday, my boss told me, you're not coming back on Tuesday. So all of this starter was going quickly. So I asked them to purchase some things, and you guys know newsrooms might buy something, they might not. So they didn't buy the green screen right away, which now I'm sort of happy about because I work on a green screen and I don't necessarily like that look in studio. So this is sort of showing them what an actual set would look like. That's been helpful. The lights I wish they had bought, they did not. But they did get my mics, and they got me some really good mics. And I think if this keeps going and I have to give these lights back, they will invest in that because now they've seen it. But on the front end, again, it wasn't anything that we planned for. And it was sort of like, just go make what works work.
Then you can put in your own virtual backgrounds. That's one of the features I like about Zoom.
Yeah.
You can take some pictures and put in your own virtual
I
background.
know, I see you on the beach. Jealous.
That's one of the that's one of Zoom's backgrounds that they give you, but you can also upload your own pictures for your background.
Yes, no, absolutely. The only difficult thing with me is my hair. When I do that, because I've got curly hair, and so it sort of goes all weird.
Yeah, I was going to advocate against, there's things we can do for fun, and then there's things we can do for work, right? And I hate to say it as in juxtaposition, but the quality on those backgrounds, like case in point, look at the halo around, Maria, I like your Starship Enterprise, look at the halo around her face.
Yeah.
That's not really ideal for your video. I mean, people understand you're doing it, but there's this weird like movement, and Elsa's right. The more detailed your hair is, you start losing it as you start making movements, and that's really distracting. If someone's talking about a beautiful artwork, a service they offer, whatever you're interviewing them about, you don't want to lose all of that interview to people being distracted by what happened to half of her head. So I think that was, you know, not to get on Teddy Riley, but when he did interviews on The Daily Show, he had a nice fedora hat thing going on, and it kept disappearing every time he turned around. So those type of things I want y'all to be aware of, because this is kind of a second or third talent that you're learning here. And it's easy to kind of like go cheap looking versus go more polished. We're here to make you look polished.
I think another thing that I remind, because I allow myself a good 20 minutes for every guest, even though our interviews are 4 to 5 minutes long. That's because I feel like I'm tech support half the time. So just reminding them to bring their laptops up and level so that we're not shooting up at people or shooting down. And then also a tip, as you're interviewing people, it's a little weird, but you're sort of looking at them out of the corner of one of your eyes, most likely your left because they're on your left, but you should be looking straight, like right at that camera, straight ahead. Just because when they're taping, it's gonna look a little bit better.
So can you go deeper into that? And then I want to jump to Harold about why you should be looking at, if you have a Mac, there's a green light next to where your camera is located. But why I'm looking that way versus looking down at the person down.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see the top of my eyelid. So like right now, if I wanted to look at Sally, you can sort of see that I'm looking down at her because she's on the middle left of my screen. But if I was doing an interview with her and she were there, I would look like this, even though I'm sort of just seeing her here because now I'm directly looking at the person at the screen, exactly, and looking out. So that's one. Another thing is that I have no prompter. So my producer likes to write really long intros, and I'm like, that's not going to happen. So I remember it as much as I can, but the other trick that I've been doing is that because I have not finessed the whole prompter thing. I know that people have come up with sort of like makeshift science project prompters, which is amazing. I have no time or patience for all that. I put it in a Word doc. I make it big. I slide my laptop back from me. I have my selfie stand and has a little remote to it. All right, so I take the remote out. I put the selfie stand there, and I put this so that my cell phone, I know that my camera is right, or I'm sorry, the lens is right there, right?
Yeah.
So when I put my selfie stick, when I put this in my selfie stick, I'm making sure that the lens for the camera is as close as possible to the computer, as close as possible to the actual words in my Word document. So sometimes you might catch me look down just a little bit because I can only lift this laptop so high. But I try to sort of look and look up so that it's not as noticeable. And that's helped a lot. So if you have the selfie stick was like $14. I mean, it's nothing. It has a little built-in light if you charge it. Mine is not charged. But that's been really, really helpful. And one last thing before you go on, I will say too, is taping inside as much as possible. When this first started, I tried to get, a little creative. We have a pond in the back and I was like, this is pretty. It looks like I'm not at home, like I'm in a park. It was fine, but the juice wasn't worth the squeeze on that. Like, my boss didn't care, my producer didn't care, and I was like, why am I lugging all this stuff outside? So that's one of the things that I learned very early is that, less is more, especially right now in a pandemic. People don't care. They want to get, the information that you're trying to give, make sure it's clean and nice, and that's it. So,
Gotcha.
sorry I rambled.
No, you're fine. You gave a lot of information. I want to jump into Mr. Harold Fisher because most of his work is done audio-wise, and many people are in love with everything from podcasts to having their own shows, and of course, audio reports for radio. Harold, can you talk to us about your day? Like, what is it that is happening? Because you have an entire show to get together. That's a lot of work.
I do. And let me first, even before I talk about that,
Okay.
let me just, shout out to, everyone in this conversation who is still working and getting a check. That's a blessing.
Yeah.
Because as we know, there are many of our colleagues who are not.
Sadly.
And so it's rough out there. And so, God bless everyone who is, continuing to collect a check and stay healthy in this pandemic. So my day has really changed more than I could have ever imagined because, I commute back and forth to DC, or was commuting from Baltimore. So that's 100 miles round trip every day, Monday through Friday. And I work from 1 to 9 p.m. My show is from 7 to 8. It's on WHUR and Sirius XM. But what has happened is instead of working an 8-hour day, I am working anywhere from 10 to 12 hours every day now. And that's the thing that has really, really changed, because when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is I reach over even before my eyes are open and I grab my phone to figure out what I've missed in the morning, or overnight, I should say. And so that's been, and if I'm waking up at 8 a.m. and then, Cuomo decides that he wants to have a press conference at 9, or Hogan decides that he wants to have a press conference at 10, or Muriel Bowser wants to have a press conference at 11. I mean, that's when my day starts. And when you talk about equipment, one of the things, there's a recorder, an app that I use on my phone. And so I will take my laptop, because of course, one of the wonderful things about the internet is you can be everywhere now. And so if there is a press conference, I just record the press conference and I pull my bites from the press conference, which is really, really convenient. The downside is, of course, if I need to ask a question, I cannot. But there are a lot of reporters there that are asking the questions that I need. And while my show is an hour long, the news segment is about 7 or 8 minutes. And I have to pull the full day. I write my entire newscast. And what has happened is that at the station, I have software that I can literally put it in, and I can edit it myself, and I can play it during my show, even though I'm in studio, and I have an audio engineer, and I have a producer who is also taking care of some of the other things for the discussion part of the show, which is live and 45 minutes long. But now the difficulty is that I have to take my sound, edit it in my phone, and email it to my audio engineer so that he can put it in what we call a cart, process it so that he can play the sound bites. But the other piece is, this is how I do it. Okay, so bear with me. So this is a Comrex. This is called a Comrex, and it is bulky. This piece comes out if necessary, and you can hook it on your belt for your Star Trek friends. It's about the size of the original tricorder on Star Trek. Okay, I'm telling my age. It is bulky, but it works. And this is the thing, if you've ever listened to, for example, National Public Radio, and there are people that they are talking to on other parts of the country, and they sound like they're in the studio. That's the thing that allows me to sound as if I'm right there in the studio, even though I'm here. And I have my NFL headphones and a microphone, which allows me to gesture and write and do all of the other things that I'm doing. Meanwhile, I'm still up on Facebook and I'm up on Twitter in the event that our president says something interesting during the course of my show, and then I can, because it's all been coronavirus for the past 2 months.
Harold, go back to the headphones.
Yes.
Quick question. Why those headphones looking like you're in the sidelines at a football game versus some earbuds?
Well, because this microphone is better than those.
Thank you.
And they are part of the Comrex.
Gotcha.
Okay. So they are married to this, and the headphones also prevent feedback and the like. And so it doesn't sound tinny like the iPod earbuds or something like that.
And I wanted to pause him really quick. Same way I paused Elsa about where to look. Again, we're a professional organization. We're about journalism, and for radio and for television, these are vital tips he's giving and Elsa are giving, because true biz, you want to look like you still are doing your product. You just happen to be doing it from home. Otherwise, anybody can go and buy a mic and try it out. That's keeping your audio sounding a lot better than you being on, I don't know, a Skype call.
Yeah, they are very, very serious about sound at WHUR. If it doesn't sound good, they don't want to use it. And not only do our managers police that, we also must self-police that information. I do, of course, have a news director. For Black radio, we have a large news department. There are 3 of us. There were 4 of us, and we do. But that person, one of the people, is no longer there. But it's the difficult thing is just the massive amount of information I think that I have to consume. I mean, we all know as journalists, that's part of it. But now there is so much more information that I am consuming all day long and trying to figure out what to put in this 7-minute newscast. In addition to, I have conference calls with my news director. We also have to post on the WHUR website. The best thing is that the newscast, or not the newscast, but the insight segment, the discussion part, is in a podcast that I don't have to put together. I just have to post it once my audio engineer sends it to me. I was able to do it on my own at the station, but now there's always this extra step because I'm here and they are there. And one of the things that Elsa was talking about, which I thought was interesting, when this first happened, when because for those of you who don't know, Howard University owns the radio station. We are the parent, they are the parent company. And it's a university. It's not like Scripps or Tribune, where it's a media company. It's a university, and universities are not known to move quickly, but we are in this business. That's what we do. We move quickly. And so we moved out slowly. And, just as people were trying to figure out how this was happening. Mm-hmm. And the first day I was supposed to broadcast from home, my engineer drove from DC to Baltimore, brought me this and the other equipment, and it did not work. So I had to drive back to DC because the show must go on.
Did you all have those Comrexes in your building already? Because
we have 2.
Okay.
But one was at my news director's house.
Okay. And so, question we had in the chat, by the way, was does the person on your interview that you were talking to, do they need to have one of those too?
No, they're on the phone.
So you're able to control the audio quality from where you are?
Absolutely not. I have an engineer.
I don't understand how this works.
Right. My engineer and my producer still come to work. Mm-hmm. Oh. But they are only there for a few hours because my engineer, God bless my engineer and my producer, both of them live within 2 miles of the radio station.
Oh, okay.
And so they literally, she works from home. Mm-hmm. She lives in Brookland near Catholic University. Mm-hmm. And Catholic University is exactly 1 mile from Howard. And then my engineer, he lives somewhere near the university. And so they come in, he comes in at 3, she comes in around 5. But there are very, very few people at the radio station right now. The afternoon show producers, they're there.
That makes sense. So
Yeah.
drawing a line between, or parallel between what you and Elsa both said, you still have somebody doing post-production in a way to kind of clean up the sound and clean up the video. All right.
As it happens. Well, it's happening live. Yeah.
When it's happening live. Gotcha. So FYI, I think a lot of you guys were on the call that we had where we just kind of went impromptu. It was like last month's meeting where we started like showing some of our toys and tricks of the trade. And there's also a video to that we have posted on BABJ's page in case you missed it. And I did show you all, it won't sound like it's on WHUR, but it will sound clean. That was using the Skype call recorder. That would probably be like, you know, obviously we're not, you yourself are not a radio station, but you want something to sound close to it, people. So with that call recorder, it just required you to get people to go onto Skype. And then it gave them the sound that they are in the same room with you. So like a lot of NPR stations use it because it's cheap.
Yeah. The one last thing that
Yeah.
they've also started us with is that now we've started something called HUR at home, where now I have to do Instagram interviews, Instagram Live or whatever.
Oh, that's cute.
No, it's not.
You know how to do that, right?
Well, I learned this week. I actually interviewed.
You got too many friends to have a Teddy Riley moment now.
Yeah, well, there's that. Yeah, you know, the problem is I interviewed Michelle Singletary with the Washington Post, who is the columnist for The Color of Money. I love Michelle.
Yeah, the money lady.
She's great. And the interview was only 15 minutes, but I think is that now our listeners, and for people like, Elsa and others, people are in your house now. And that's something that I don't want to do. We're
set up a corner. We're going to talk about setting up your corner or setting up your set. Elsa said, she said, look at my set. This is a set. For me, this is my work situation, by the way, just because I don't want my work people in my house.
Right.
But I obviously, y'all have seen I have other spots that I do stuff from.
Let's do touch on that because I got a whole bunch to say.
Let's talk. Let's get this now. Go, Elsa.
Oh no, I do feel some sort of way about having the masses in my home. Your home is your home, right? It feels weird. I'm glad that everyone's like, oh, did you set up that set? I'm like, no, it's my couch and this is my actual art. And it's when you invite someone into your home, it's because you know them. This is my family. We're having a party. Here's a barbecue. It's like, it is very, it's been a mind shift for me to give the viewers that much access. Yes, it's not a news show, so it is relaxed in that it is lifestyle. So they should feel comfortable, but I don't want them to be that comfortable, that familiar. It's a little much, like we had a cooking segment. We have a kitchen set in our studio, but they were like, oh, you can go in your kitchen. I'm like, they don't need to see all that because now they've been in my living room, they've been in my kitchen, they've been in my deck. It's a little too much.
Or frankly, your interviewee could take it to their kitchen. How about that?
Nicki.
Thank you.
So that's
Nicki, you know how much I like to cook, right? And so after I did the Instagram thing with Michelle last week, people were finding me on inbox and were like, oh yeah, now I post my food on Instagram, but it's the food. I don't do full-blown kitchen cooking lessons. And now I've got folks saying, oh, can you cook for me? And yeah, that's a no. But so yeah, this is a whole different kind of thing. And it takes some getting used to, even outside of the loss of privacy that those of us found was the case when we entered into this business, particularly for those of us who started in television.
Well, I apologize to everybody that we lost Karen for the rest of the meeting. But I did want to bring her on because she was doing pretty much like the one-man band reporter thing from home. And if you guys have any questions about like how to make it work from home, I'm going to stand in for Karen just because back in the day, they called them bureaus when they made us take all that gear and stuff home and shoot everything. But real talk, that's why I was making all those jabs about, oh, look, they're taking their gear home and they're doing stories from their house. and they're cutting video from their house.
Yeah.
And what do they call it now? Spectrum now used to be Time Warner before. All of those stations, we were putting in full page graphics, lower thirds, all that stuff yourself. Yeah, all of that. So that's why I'm like, I'm a resource if you got questions about that, but I wanted to like make sure you didn't feel like we had lost that aspect of the conversation too, because I know most of you guys on here, you probably don't have your own show, but you probably are being asked to turn audio stories, television stories, and video stories in the same. So,
and so, and I've got a podcast too, and that's been different because typically our producer would come to Eden's house. I'd go there and we'd all tape in person, but we are social distancing and we're not doing that. So that's why I was interested to hear what you were doing, Harold, is that, I'm a novice. No one's paying me for this podcast, not yet. But I'm just trying to keep it going because consistency is key. So we're on, I don't know, episode 10 or something like that. So we launched like right as Corona was hitting. So we're like, oh, okay, perfect timing. But I say all that to say is that we've been doing Zoom because all of a sudden we have guests. Typically we don't have guests. It's just been me and Eden. And then I've just been finessing it because, again, this is not my forte. I am not a sound engineer. I want it to sound good, but I'm trying to make it work. So I tape it on Zoom, and then I put it into Final Cut. Then I disable the video. Then I mess with the audio levels. I export it as a MP3, and then I just hope it does what it does. Again, that's not the way to do it, but I think in this time and era, you got to make it work how you can make it work, as long as it's sounding okay or looking okay. But Nicki hit the nail on the head, is that our stuff still has to be far and above what Joe Schmo with a camera on YouTube is doing. Like it still there has to be a marketable difference between the professionals and just anyone with a camera. This is a good time because it sort of levels the playing field. I think that the cream rises to the top. But it's also something not to take for granted just because we are the professionals.
And just to kind of piggyback on that, even outside of the quality, and I think everyone, no matter what your job is, whether it's television or radio, or if you're in PR, or if you are in media relations, this is when you have to get it done, even when you don't know how to get it done. Because for 2 days, this is some inside baseball. Oh my God, there's a black man with a mask. Okay, no, I'm sorry. COVID, forgive me, I'm sorry. Brothers got to be careful out there these days with these masks, but that's a whole different conversation.
That's a whole other conversation.
But Howard University lost its internet. So that meant this did not work.
Wow.
So what I had to do was I had to record my newscast on this. Fortunately, one of the producers in the afternoon, who happens to be one of my frat brothers, he had a hotspot. So I was able to email my track and my sound bites to him. And then he put them on a flash drive, handed them to my audio engineer in another part of the building. And then he pulled them off the flash drive and edited my newscast. And I did my newscast. I did the insight segment, the discussion portion of the show on my home phone. Now, I have a home phone because
I was going to ask, a landline? A real one?
How about that? But
Wow.
See, here's the thing. My home, I haven't used the home phone. It's only there for my security system. I had 2 of them, one in my bedroom and one here in the dining room that I never use. So because we know whatever can go wrong will go wrong, I brought the one from my bedroom, I brought it downstairs, and halfway through the program, the battery died live. And my producer had to call me. So she called me back and I picked up the other phone and I finished the program. This is about, make sure that you are ready so you don't have to get ready.
Amen.
I mean, you just really, you know, I talked to my boss afterwards and she said, I don't even see how you pulled that off, because everything that could have gone wrong was going to go wrong. And so and sometimes, you know, quality may have to suffer just to make sure that you can get it done. It's like, you know, Snowmageddon, you know, if you can't get to work anyway. And I think that's kind of where it, you know, that's kind of where it puts us.
Well, I'm glad you guys are offering up like really professional how-tos, because I mean, that's the most important part, to have that knowledge base. Otherwise, you're just gonna go to what you know. And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody, if that had happened to them, to like go and, okay, Google voice that bad boy. Like you just try to like, what do you call it, MacGyver it or something like real fast to make it work. I wanted to make sure that Maria Morales, who had her hand patiently up, she has a question. Unmute yourself. I'll unmute you.
Unmute. Okay. Hi. And hi, Harold. Nice to meet you both. I had a question. Well, and this is just general. Either one of you can answer. But Elsa, you showed the 2 box lights. I know Nicki has those box lights. The box lights versus the ring.
Yeah.
Is the first question.
So,
and then the second question is, Harold, with the headphones, and any of you can answer, do you feel that you need headphones if you're doing, like you all know, I do Facebook Live shows and things like that. Do you feel that that's needed for that? Thank you.
Elsa, you can go first.
For the YouTube show that I had, we used both. We had the ring light, because in the ring light, we had our camera, which was like a digital camera. So it was video and stills. So that was in the center of the ring light. I asked for that initially, but there would be no way for my phone. It wasn't conducive for a phone to be in the ring light. So that's the only reason I didn't have it. But once I just got these 2 lights, I realized I didn't need it. The ring light also does that ring light weird thing with the eye thing. Looks like googly boogly. I don't really like that. I think it lights you well, but for me, it throws me off with the eyes all the time. Like I just personally don't like it.
So you mean it messes with your eyes?
Like, no, you see like a circle in their eyes. Like you see weird.
Look like a cat.
You look, yeah. You look like like one of those Japanese cartoons.
Yeah, the animes. Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. I think people have gotten used to it because a lot of people use it, but you'll see it. But for me, it's just, if I can get around, and I wear contacts too. So I think it makes it worse. I'm not anti, I've used it before. I also feel like if you do not have enough room to do the big box lights, that circle light is what you want.
Perfect.
Because that will take care of everything.
It's great for small spaces.
Yes.
And I like the fact that it evenly lightens up your face, so you don't have to be a lighting pro.
Right.
Know that you look great. Just look straight into the middle, and you can't mess it up.
Exactly.
I did want to offer a warning though with the ring lights, and just a reminder for men and women that lighting emphasizes everything. So you've seen, like when you had kids and you took them to a dance recital, if they didn't have makeup on, well, that's weird. It washes them out. But as close as you're going to be into like the camera and stuff like that, if you have a lot of lighting going on there, we see everything. So if you're anti-makeup, or you're anti the shape up, or whatever you can do to make yourself look best in this Armageddon situation that we're in, just know that everything is going to come across. Every darkness, every wrinkle, every pimple, every scar from a pimple, we see everything.
Yeah, I think with me, obviously, I have to cake on a lot of makeup. It's part of the job. But even then, what I've noticed is that I'm taping way closer to my face, you know? So if before I could just sort of slam on makeup and then go in studio, and it's not a really big deal. Now I have to be precise. If this line is not right, y'all gonna be like, look, she got a crooked line, or her lash coming off is like you wouldn't be able to see that if I were in studio because it's further away. Here, there's no, you know, you can't keep it real. You got to keep it very polished because people will see it. I've seen it. I've looked at it on air afterwards and been like, yeesh, not tomorrow. We fix that. You know?
Look, coming from the post high definition generation.
Katie is here. Some of us had to be raised on heavy makeup on purpose, man. So,
yes, Mac was my friend when I was in TV. Trust me.
Lord.
You know, because like my mother said, you know, if you're ugly, you're ugly. I mean, that's all you got, all jokes aside. But on the lighting thing, one other thing, I know I'm silly. If you have the resources to get box lights, if your station or your organization is doing that, fine. I used to be a still photographer back in the pre-digital days. And so a friend of mine Misha Green, she is the DC editor of the Afro-American newspaper, and she was doing these podcasts, and Misha is a darker sister, and I mentioned it to her, and she said, yeah, they're going to send me a light. But she said she didn't know when that was coming. And I said, okay, tell you what, this is what you do. Grab a sheet of paper, fold it, and put a rubber band around a light. If the light is pointing up, put it around here. Real cheap, and it works. And it diffuses the light. Also, even if you have a thin napkin or cloth napkin or handkerchief or something like that. And I've seen the ring lights, I've never used them, but the way to keep that thing out of your eye is to put it over the light. Another cheap way to do it. You can light yourself without having to spend all of that money or wait for your station to do all of that. Light, light is light. You just have to kind of play with it.
Just know the ring light, though, you can't put anything over
It's
it.
hot.
Well,
No,
not that
because
it's
your
hot,
camera's
is
in the
that
middle.
your,
Right, okay.
whatever you're recording is in the center.
See, like I said,
They made it foolproof. Honestly, you can't really mess this up. You just put the camera, put your phone there, and boom, now you're like studio lit.
Yeah, unless like Elsa said, you have that thing in your eye. I don't particularly.
I think it's a me thing. Most people have gotten over it. I just
we
don't.
We conditioned ourselves to see it. We're kind of used to it now.
Maria, what was your second question?
Yeah,
about the headphones. If you are doing video, Facebook Live, whatever, if you should have headphones on.
So these headphones are specifically for my broadcast. When I don't use them, they are not separate from the Comrex. That's part of it. When I've done the Instagram interviews, I literally just take my phone and just set it on my computer because I don't have a stand, because I never had to do that before this, and I wasn't going to pay for the stand, and it works just fine. But I use the speaker on the phone. There's no need to do it. But again, it may not be visually pristine if you have to have these things in your ears. But again, if your managers or what have you don't mind, then that's kind of the way. I mean, network does it, because a lot of times people are either talking from home or they're talking to people like Katera. She has the earpieces. I've seen those on network interviews. And if they don't have any problem with it not looking pristine, then I really wouldn't worry about it. But for my phone, it works just fine. But those headphones are specifically for the Comrex.
Okay.
Thank you both.
The next question we had came from Enid. I don't know. Is your audio? If not, yeah.
My question is more. Let me say, of course, you guys know I'm in public relations, but I know a lot of journalists. And someone I actually mentor works for a major network. And 2 days ago, her uncle died of COVID-19 and her aunt is sick. That said, then you have Stephanie Rule. I mean, you guys were just talking about how you get, what you do to set boundaries within your homes. I'm curious because it's your business. I do work with healthcare, but I can step away and watch a Netflix movie. I don't have to be on the air at 1 o'clock and, something happens emotionally. What do you guys do to prepare yourself, daily? Because this isn't something you can literally just separate yourself from at will, as, some of us on this call can do.
You mean emotionally?
Yeah, emotionally, or even to give yourself a break.
So that's such an excellent question. And my boss, Renee Nash at WHUR. This, over the past week or two, has been part of the discussion that we have had during our daily news call. Sometimes it's a longer discussion, 3 or 4 minutes, and sometimes it's just a mention. I think everyone deals with these things in different ways. I'm a person of faith, and so I am concerned, but I'm not worried. And that goes back to what I said in the beginning about still getting a check. And I think if I weren't, I would probably be more worried than just concerned, to put a fine point on it. There are days when, and not frequently, but for example, on the weekends, the first couple of weekends, we had to be up and ready for live hits and to post on the internet. That has kind of slowed down a little bit. And so, yes, I will, me and my girlfriend Alexa here, we listen to music,
Just put my Alexa on.
Yeah, Alexa, stop. See, and then there are plenty of movies and things that I can do. As a news junkie, this continues to fascinate me every day, and so I don't pull away from it very, very much. I may pull away from it for about 6 hours a day where I do watch a movie, or I do get in the kitchen and I just cook. And my scale has reminded me that I've been doing a little bit too much of that. But other than that, it doesn't bother me that much. And I think the other thing is, and I will say this, and this is part of the conversation also, we all have friends who are extroverts, we see them on Instagram. Yes, the Nicki Mayos of the world, they love to be in the club, at the bar, wherever they're doing, turning up. I'm a homebody, and so being at home does not bother me. And I mean, other than going grocery shopping and doing everything else, I like my little house and I like my own company, and so I'm fine with it. Certainly connecting with, my daughter. I haven't seen my daughter physically in 2 months, and she's graduating from Howard University next month, and my heart is breaking because she will not walk. None of them will. They'll be getting it in the mail. And so I think that's where it gets to me emotionally. I've seen my mother and my father and my stepmother, they're great, they're wonderful. And I have seen them, they stand on the porch, I stand on the walkway. But other than that, it hasn't, bothered me. One other thing I will say about that, which I think is really fascinating, the Today Show did an interview with some dream specialist, and they were saying that people are having really vivid dreams, and because they're working at home or they're staying at home. And I must say that has really, happened to vivid, strange, weird, whatever you want to call them. And she was explaining that, yeah, your sleep cycle is longer, you're at home, and, your commute is much shorter, from the living room to the bedroom now. So, yeah.
I want to give Elsa a chance to answer that as well. I think what Ina is talking about is very important, the work-life balance, I hate that cliche, but it's the truth. And now that work has come home, how are you, balancing? Because you're pretty good at telling people about boundaries,
Yeah, because I had to learn the hard way. I mean, I literally just ran when I left just now. It's because my daughter bumped her head and was screaming, and I was like, I can't hear all that. So yeah, I mean, when I left the business, I left after about 9 years in, and it was because I had already had, and Nicki knows this, I had already had sort of it just took a toll. I mean, my personality is typically more upbeat. So to be covering fires and murders all the time and plane crashes, and that was my day to day, and I could not turn off. I was aware of, obviously, we as journalists are vessels, right? We're supposed to just tell the story and we're a conduit. But I would come home and it would be heavy over and over and over again. And I was like, I can't keep doing this. My now husband, but boyfriend at the time, he said, you don't have to do this. And I was like, oh, no one ever told me that. Because when you're a journalist, you don't have a plan B. You're just a journalist. That's what you went to school for. That's what you want to do. So I say all that to say is that when I stepped away, my job was working from home. I went into tech marketing for Yelp. Our headquarters was in San Francisco. I was launching this area, the Baltimore area. So I covered basically everything between DC and Delaware. And I would go to San Francisco once a quarter, and I worked remotely. So at the time I had no kid, it was just a husband. And so I didn't mind sort of working around the clock because I could wake up early in the morning, I could work out, and I could start my work day at 11. So if I was working 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., I didn't really care because one, I enjoyed what I was doing. I was at home, I was in yoga pants, I didn't have any makeup on. It was great. This is not that. This is a different thing. So my deadlines are not the same as many of yours because, again, I'm not in news, I'm in lifestyle. So I can tape things beforehand. But what I did, because I know that I can get overwhelmed, is I had to tell my producer and my boss, like, look, I will do 3 heavy days, but I can't be doing this every single day when I'm taking on makeup and going down to my living room. So let's make my Monday, Wednesday, Friday heavy back-to-back interviews. So I might do minimum of 4, I might do a maximum of 10, and we will crank out probably 30 interviews in that time. I will tape all my ins and outs for the show. Any sort of promos or teases that we have to do. I'm about to shoot a commercial remotely. How that's gonna work, I don't know, but we're gonna figure it out. But I had to let them know that my Tuesday, Thursday, I need to actually homeschool my child. That's a priority. And, and I did not feel bad about that because we're all in the same boat. They got kids at home too, that they want to be just as smart as I want my kid to be. And I wasn't going to feel bad about the fact that I was homeschooling while quote unquote on the job, because they see me sending text messages at midnight and 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. I'm like, Harold, like when you wake up, that phone is right there. It's not necessarily a good thing to do, but it is there. Nicki sort of spoke to the point of something that I've been trying to reclaim in probably the last week and a half. I was very good about it before the quarantine, but that was starting out the day with time for myself. I've got a Peloton. Typically, I get on that. I don't have a lot of time, but at least 15 minutes, because for me, that's like my coffee in the morning. I need the endorphins. When I don't do that, that's when you end up like I was a couple of days ago, where I'm not clear-minded, I'm not focused, I'm overwhelmed. I don't get anxiety, but this situation has introduced it to me. So it's sort of knowing the things that that we did to take care of ourselves beforehand. We might not be able to do those same things, but there's a way to finesse it and figure out how to do it. So whereas I would go to Solid Core or whatever 4 times a week, I can't go there now. It's shut down, so I've got to figure out something else that's going to give me that same mental clarity. And it's not easy. It really isn't. I live at home. My husband's a personal trainer, nutritionist, and I was still eating Lindt chocolates and candies and everything, just trying to make it through. So it happens to the best of us, even when we know to do better. So I think just being patient with ourselves and realizing that this isn't just time at home. This is time at home during a crisis. So it's a different scenario, if that makes sense.
If I may briefly add to that, one of the things this really reminds me of is in the days and weeks after 9/11, but exponentially worse, exponentially more severe, because for those of you who are old enough to remember that, and I'm talking old enough to remember it as professionals, when the plane struck the tower, we had just gotten off the air at Fox 45, and then we went back on the air 10 minutes later, and we were on the air. We had just finished a 3.5-hour show, morning show, and we went back on the air, and we were on the air until about 2:30 in the afternoon. And then our time at home was truncated, of course, because we had to come back. Instead of coming back at 2:30 in the morning, we had to return to the studio at midnight. And then we worked from 5 a.m. on the air at 5 a.m. until noon every single day for almost 2 weeks. And so I didn't have a chance to mourn, to process until 2 weeks after September 11th. This is different in that there is, as I said, there's so much more information and so much more to process. And this is a slow burning tragedy in that, you know, the numbers just increase every single day. And so it has taken me a really, really long time to process. And as I said, and my daughter is a type 1 diabetic, and so she had to really stay in one place because she had one of those underlying conditions. And I think that's when it kind of hit me emotionally that I haven't seen my child in 2 months. And so find whether if you're a person of faith, you know, reading your scripture or whatever it happens to be, whether it's music, whether if you need to have a dance party with your girlfriends or your guy friends or what have you, watch your alcohol consumption.
Why are you looking at me?
I'm just looking.
I'm laughing too.
That was my guilt that came out.
Right.
I felt like he was looking at all of us at this point.
But you know, and watch how much you eat. I mean, like I said, I picked up some pounds here because I was cooking. But really take some time, even if it's just 30 to 60 minutes a day, just trying to figure out what's going on with you, because it'll come out.
Enid, you mentioned too, I had a coworker that I worked with at WDKX in Rochester, New York, who just passed from COVID, maybe 3 days ago, at least that's when I found out. And I found out the day after a friend of mine told me his father passed from COVID. And that father was a friend of my parents. So I've known him since I was 14. I think in those moments, I hate to say it, sometimes being a journalist helps me still, even though I'm a host now, is that you feel it, but there can be not a wall, but there's sort of like a time that you allocate to feel it, if that makes sense, because you know you got to get other things done, and you
compartmentalize.
You do. And so I know it will hit me. There's been moments where it's hit me, but I'm also like, I've got, what interviews do I have to do? Is this a Skype interview or is this a Zoom interview? Is this a phone interview? Are my lights working properly? I only got 5 minutes to do. Did I deep condition my hair? Did I do, little things that don't seem important, but they all go into it. And you're constantly going. I've picked up a couple of books. I've done a lot more spiritual work. I'm just going to be completely forthcoming. And that's been helpful, is where I'm like, okay, I'm going to read a chapter of this book in the mornings if I have time. And if I don't, I'm reading in the evening. I started a gratitude journal during this pandemic, sort of on accident, because one of the books was saying, just write out 10 things that you're grateful for and why. Because not just, oh, I'm grateful to be able to work from home, but I'm grateful to be able to work from home because I'm able to still support my family, or I still have healthcare, or whatever it is, or sometimes it might not even be that big. I'm grateful that today it's actually sunny because yesterday it rained, or I'm thankful that it rained today because, my flowers are going to look great in a week. Whatever it is it sounds silly, but it has helped me exponentially. And I feel like when those moments come, when you find out that there's a loved one that's passed, or maybe it's not even that, that severe. It might just be like, this is day, 60 bazillionth that I've been in the house. And it's just sort of like, I just want to get out. I think having it written down and being able just to say thank you for those things to whatever you believe in, God, the universe, Jesus, whatever it is, it brings you back to self so that you can process this. Because as journalists, we have to go all the time. And there is no time to pause unless we make the time to pause.
Yeah, I feel awkward asking a tech question after all this, because this is really a great.
We probably need it, Nicki.
I'm just trying to make sure I'm serving my people here. So it is a quick technical question. One of our people, Dave, still had his hand up. Dave, yeah. Unmute.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Hey, well, listen, thank you all for all of that, because that actually may have helped a lot more than a lot of the technical stuff. But we were talking before, and actually I have a sort of a follow-up question about something else. But you were talking before about lighting, and this is the light that I got a couple years ago. and I actually got it because of from suggested from one of the meetings we had a couple of years ago about getting technical equipment. And I'm a lifelong print guy, so this has all been a process for me when I'm doing things like Zooms and Skypes, and there's like a little podcast I'm starting to do now. Is that good enough to do the things that we want to do, or do we need to have like the big the big box lights that we talked about earlier in this, or the ring lights or things like that? Would something just this small, it's like the size of a cell phone, would that be good enough?
Depends on the room that you're in, and it depends on your background. So if your background is light enough, perhaps, but it's like, how much space are you filling and how dark is the background? Like, what are you competing with visually? I'll let Harold's a photographer. I am not. So what do you think?
So here's the thing, and this is particularly the case for for print people who years ago I would have said who know nothing about television or visuals, but the reality is we're all in the same boat because of social media and multimedia. I tell people all the time that you need to light the subject. If the subject is you, light the subject. Be careful about having light back here without lighting yourself here, because then you will be in silhouette. Let us look, not to pick out anybody, but
Yeah, I'll do it.
class, look at
Nicki.
I'll do it, but I hate it.
They quickly get tongue can. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so Jessica has light. Jessica, don't run away. Jessica has light coming from the curtain, and she has light over her other shoulder. As a darker sister, the subject is not lit, so we cannot see her as well.
If it was a white dude, I've had plenty of white dudes that.
Yeah, same thing.
Perception the minute you put in a window. I mean, in front of a window.
When I say I'm tech support, that's the thing, is that a lot of times and sorry to interrupt, but a lot of times our guests are not us. At least we have like a working knowledge where we're trying to finesse it. For them, they don't know. And I'm just happy that they're trying. So a lot of times they just think like, oh, this is a pretty window. Let me sit right in front of it. I was like, yo, I cannot see you.
Yeah, I mean, we can, and that's a great question, David, because we can just look, if you look at Shanti has that, what they call the Egyptian, because she's lit on one side of her face. Because she's darker on one side than she is on the other side. The reason my light is even is because I'm sitting in front of a window facing me. And so, whether you've got a light in front of you or natural light, which is always the best, natural light is always the best for this kind of work. When in television, they used to light us and we had to learn how not to do this. When we had, that light in front of us when we were doing stand-ups, which is very, very difficult to do. But I don't know what kind of, you must be sitting, are you sitting in front of a light, David? Or
I'm facing a window.
There you go. You look great.
Well, thank you.
You black don't crack. So that's the thing. That's what I would suggest, because the light is not harsh. It's very natural. Mm-hmm. But just be careful, because you notice above my head, this is my kitchen. That's a light in the ceiling, but it's not directly behind me because it's not overpowered by the light in front of me.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because there's a ceiling light behind me that just out of habit, that's what I turn on sometimes when I do this stuff.
Do that because it's right behind you. Yeah. Right. And also you have to look at the color of your walls. My walls here are colored walls. Mm-hmm. So if I were to do it here, and the walls in my dining room where I do the Instagram thing, that they are a kind of a warm pumpkin. Don't you love words? It's a warm pumpkin, and so it's
so descriptive. That's great, man. You should write for a living, man.
I did go to Morgan.
Right. That's right.
There we go. Y'all immediately chimed in. We knew that was coming.
But
for y'all. There you go.
But again, even with the pumpkin-colored walls behind me, the light that I used was reflected off of the paper, and so it lit me. But you could also see my living room and, the whole bit. So it did. So, just make sure that you are lit.
Mm-hmm. So right now I just turned off my lights so you guys could see the difference with that. What I've got in here is cross light. So in the kitchen, there's some light. In the front of the house, there's some light. There's also an overgrown bush, so I'm not really getting all the light. But you can sort of see, like, I'm more lit here than I am on this side. Yeah. Is it horrible? No. Could I do an interview like this? Sure. So if you don't have a light, you can't get your hands on lights. It does take a little bit of time to get on Amazon. Doing it, honestly, the way David did it over the way that I'm doing it is preferable. So where you're sort of looking out the window. If you have a cross light and it's a sunny day, great, do it this way if it is actually coming through. But the thing you have to worry about that is if the sun goes behind a cloud all of a sudden, then you're screwed. So you're better off, at least with David's way, is that if that happens, it's a uniform change as opposed to, now I've got some creepy thriller things going on.
It happens. And again, we're going for a polished look for like a professional reason. So
I'm about to get these lights again. Bye.
Okay, so I don't want to be a woman who lied to you guys about the time. Do we have other questions for our panel? They have been so awesome to stick around with us for a couple minutes.
Time, where's anybody going? They're staying at home.
But I respect your time. I told y'all an hour. I don't want y'all to say Nicki had me on here for 2 hours talking about lighting. So I gotta make sure.
Bump the mess out of her head too. I gotta go.
I'm trying to be honest. I told y'all an hour. But no, if you're free and available, I just wanted people to feel comfortable because
got an ice pack. She'll be all right.
I think Brandon had a question.
Poor babe. Brandon. I'm looking. No hands.
Brandon did.
Brandon. Yes, please, Brandon. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Hey, thank you guys for being here and for sharing all your knowledge during this crazy time. I had a question for Harold. For doing interviews with strictly audio, because I have friends that do podcasts and stuff like that, and they always using Skype to record their audio and stuff like that. Have you ever had to record an interview yet using Zoom or Skype? And what software did you use to edit with?
I haven't, because it's audio, and this is the advantage. I've done a few. This is the advantage of having a home phone, because my home phone has a speaker on it, and so and the speaker is pretty loud, and it's so basic that I will pull up the software and I will record and just hold the phone to the speaker, and it's pretty clean. I mean, that it's not in person, but I would recommend, if you're doing audio, don't worry. The software that I have, it's called TW Recorder. And this is an iPhone. It's called TW Recorder. It is free, and it takes a little getting used to edit, but it works really, really well. And so if it's just audio, go ahead and pull it up on Skype or Zoom. For example, in talking to you, if I wanted to record it, I'll tell you what. This is interactive. So let us do this and see how this works. So, Brandon, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm a senior at Bowie State University. I will be graduating virtually June 26th at 3 p.m. I'm a broadcast journalism concentration with hopes and aspirations to be a sports anchor and reporter. I also have experience doing radio. I also have experience doing digital editorial from my internship that I had this past summer with NBC Sports Group.
Actually, wonderful. And if you're interested, I have a beautiful young lady who is also graduating from Howard that you may want to meet. I'm sorry, she would not be happy. Okay, so.
Where is it? Like that over here? That
was what we're doing now?
Just took a turn.
BABJ Uncut, the after hours is what we're doing now, people.
Matchmaker.
Is that what we're doing now?
Who you got for me, Harold?
And then his side time.
And she has no grammar deficits.
Put it on in there, like just slide. And
I know. Here you go. Let's see how this sounds. Brandon, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm a senior at Bowie State University. I will be graduating virtually June 26th. As journalism concentration with hopes and aspirations to be a sport.
How did that sound?
It sounded
dropped
good.
back a
It sounded
little.
good. It dropped a little bit in between, but it sounded good for the most part from what I heard.
Yeah, it sounded, the drop may have been in this, but for me,
You could still hear it.
I could literally, if I did a segment, that I wanted to put on my show, I could edit that, excuse me, email it to my audio engineer, and it would come out great.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you have to, as Nicki said, sometimes you have to MacGyver it. And I've used that software. I've been using that software since the first time I think I used it was at the Democratic National Convention when Obama was running in 2008. And I used it for Kaylin McCain, and yeah, I've been using that software now for quite some time. It works very, very well.
Brandon, I will say that if you are interested in using Zoom for podcasts, again, I don't know if you were on earlier when I said that I was doing that. I'm doing it in part because I like to see people. Even if I'm only taking the audio, I'm just used to that format because I'm used to TV. So what I've been doing is recording it that way and then putting it in Final Cut, disabling the video, and then exporting it after I've cut everything. It actually makes it easier for me to cut too, because sometimes I'll remember somebody's expression before I remember what they said. So I'll cut it as if it's video, and I don't care about jump cuts because I'm disabling the video afterwards. And then I'll export it as an MP3. I send that to my sound guy, and then
I'm on mute.
take the echo out of it a little bit. He can't do it all the time. I've noticed that I have an external mic. My co-host, she has an external mic, but the guests that we've been having, we've been interviewing some comedians lately. They don't have all that. So they might sound a little more hollow, but because 2 out of 3 voices sound very clear, it's forgivable, if that makes sense. It's not the best, but it ain't the worst either. So it's what I know to do. Like Harold knows this software. I'm not learning anything new right now. I cannot. So I'm just taking what I know. Yeah, I'm just taking what I know and just trying to make it work. So if that is something that, I will say that Zoom quality for sound is better than Skype quality for sound.
Yeah.
I do not know why.
Yeah, I've been impressed with what I've heard through Zoom compared to Skype.
Yeah. And you will have moments where it might glitch out, but I can see or hear that in real time. And I'll just tell my co-host and whoever we're interviewing, like, stop, we're going to repeat that. And then, but you have to be mindful and be listening in real time because Zoom will glitch. It'll just happen. So you want to make sure you don't miss anything.
Yeah, the idea is to make it as clean from the beginning so that you can't really do that whole stupid phrase of we'll fix it all in post. Some things cannot be fixed in post. And I know it's hard when you're talking to an interview, you're excited about getting the interview, but sometimes you have to beg them to control their environment around them. The same way I was talking about in the beginning of this, I was muting everybody until folks got comfortable and used to, we can't step on each other and yell out, and frankly, make sure that your environments weren't a little cantankerous. Because normally the person that's driving, if you haven't noticed, the person that's driving in a car on a Zoom call tends to be the one that cuts through everybody. And it's because their microphone is the most sensitive.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So that's why, like, it never makes sense. And that poor person is so busy driving, they don't realize that they're the one that's disrupting a Zoom call. But if you're interviewing somebody and they're like, yeah, I got a couple minutes, and they're always on the go, you almost have to beg them to, can you do me a favor and can you just kind of go sit somewhere quiet so it doesn't sound like I hear all of outside in this call. Getting them in front of a video camera of sorts, like, doing the Skype call, doing the Zoom call, that makes them sit their behinds down. That makes your interview way better because they are focused on the interview and not trying to multitask everything.
There's Karen. She made it back.
She's back? Is she back?
Yes, I did. I made it.
Okay. Hey, Karen.
Hey.
Did you have any, I know you went in and out. Did you have any gems of wisdom to share with the group about working from home and making this reporter anchor thing work?
Yeah, I think Elsa pointed on a good topic toward the top of the hour when she was, when you were talking about doing Zoom interviews and making sure that you sort of look directly at the camera and not at the person. That's a really good point. As well, I've had to tell the people that I've been interviewing, just don't look down and make sure your laptop is at eye level, right? So that's an important thing that was already mentioned. I have not anchored yet from my apartment. That could change, I don't know. So I've just been doing reporting and interviewing people, and I have a small living room, which a lot of us are working out of now. So every time I'm on a Zoom call or if I'm on camera, I don't want it to look like I'm in the same position every single time. So you have to be creative in changing up your backdrops a lot. I don't know if that was talked about, not doing interviews from the same.
You're better than me.
You get my couch, that's it. All you get is the couch. Karen, can you talk about that person behind the back?
She also has a nice picture behind her too.
I'm impressed, Karen. I was just saying, nope, they get what they get. That's it.
So I'll move my camera around. So what I can show you is kind of how I set this up. So this large portrait behind me, if you can see that sometimes is one backdrop. I would sit in the middle of my living room with a chair and have that sort of in the background as one. If you have a tree, the good old tree, or a bookshelf or something like that. I've also used my sofa. Let me turn this around. I've also used my sofa, and apparently, if you can see, a lot of people like the decorative pillows that I have. You don't really see any of my kitchen. And something else that my web people at my job was able to do for me, if I need to do a stand-up, if I don't want to leave my apartment, what they did was, I'll show you that's my TV screen right there, and it has the WTHR logo on it. So they made me a graphic. It's the same thing that they use in the studio, and they just sent me a photo of that, so I can just put that into my TV. And normally what I do is I put that TV on my kitchen countertop, and I would stand next to it and just do a stand-up that way as a different background. So that's just something different.
Is that an HDMI cord from your laptop to it, or are you projecting from your cell phone?
It is. That is an HDMI card. My personal laptop, I'm using, let me see.
Okay.
Bring this over a little bit more. I'll take this here so I can show you. So, yeah, so I'm using my personal laptop here and just have an HDMI cord connected to my television that shows there to make it a little bigger. So that's what I did. Yeah, and something else is, if you've seen the photo, so I have a deck in my apartment, and this works really, really well. If you all haven't seen the photo, I stand outside on my deck, and I use my work phone to record myself. It's a iPhone XS is what they gave me. So I already have like a tripod. I have my
it's BABJ cribs. Go ahead, Campbell.
What's in the refrigerator? That's what I want to know.
I have my, this is a 8-inch ring light. I need to get a bigger one, but this works pretty well. So this is an 8-inch ring light that I have. It comes in 3 different, I'll show you this, 3 different, hang on a second. I'll plug this in, and it plugs right into your laptop if you want. And so it has 3 different settings. I just use the first setting, which is just white. There's a orange, there's a blue, so you can kind of play around with it a little bit. And
You wear your glasses on air?
Has the attachment for your phone. Say again.
You wear your glasses on air?
I do not. No.
Okay, I was gonna ask you about reflection with that.
No.
Never mind.
I've learned.
Okay.
So, and the light also helps if I'm sitting, if it's at night or something and I need more light, I just put this right above my laptop to sort of give me more lighting on my face. So that helps. So those are a couple of tricks that I've done just to, switch up the background a little bit for TV purposes.
Like between two ferns and stuff up in here. I love it. But you know what though? Okay, here's how it goes is that you have to repurpose almost every inch of your place if that's all you got. And if they're asking for, be a little bit more innovative with these stand-ups or show us something different. If you have managers like that, then what she's doing makes 100% sense. If you want to keep it to one area, like what I tell a lot of my clients, my video clients, that they get these interviews on CNN and C-SPAN and stuff like that, just have your little backdrop and corner set up and you know where to go. You know how to turn that light on and don't mess it up. It's an easy go-to.
Karen answered a lot of the questions I had about backdrops, but Nicki, you kind of touched on it a little bit. Should we sort of identify one's place that we always want to, do these things from, like just pick a spot or pick a camera angle, or should we focus more on the look or the quality of the audio, so there won't be like echoes in a larger space? Should we move around to like a living room or a dining room, or should we focus it on like in my case, there's a spot where there's a lot of bookcases and things on the wall, things like that. I mean, is there any one factor or dynamic we should focus on when we're picking a place to have backdrops?
I will say, you don't want your backdrop to compete with you. So like right now, I've got artwork, and you're seeing more artwork than you typically would see. Normally, I do it so that there's something behind me, but not that you're like, oh, what's she got going on? You know what I mean? Like you want just something that that something's there. My husband has been doing some interviews remotely as well. He's a personal trainer, nutritionist, so he's been doing that. But one of the things that I was telling him is that we do have a lot of art on this floor. And in one of the things that he shot, there was like a wooden sculpture that was sort of like over his shoulder accidentally. And that's just where he was. So I was like, don't do that again, because that is competing with you. So I think books are benign. No one's really noticing that. Little knickknacks are normally benign. Artwork, as long as you're only seeing like a little corner of it. Karen, her artwork you see there, and her plant in the back, or her tree. And so, it is a big plant though. But as long as it's not competing with you and you're well lit. For Karen's bosses, it sounds like they want her to have different looks. My boss actually said the different, he said the exact opposite, but it's a preference. So it depends on who it is that you're working for and whatever organization. So those are just make sure you're well lit and your background is not competing with you. And then in terms of if you're getting a secondary location or a third, I think that's really dictated by the organization or a company that you're working for.
Can I also, I wasn't going to do this, but since Karen did it, I'll say this, MTV Cribs foolishness, but anyway, when I did my, my Instagram video, I was sitting actually, this is my living room, and it looked something like this, although I think I was a little, I don't know, I was a little further away, but, and the artwork again, I'm squatting now, but it looks something like that. And what we do see, especially for some of the networks, is you see pictures of family in the background. And I was, I had the lamps, kind of framing my face. And that worked. The artwork actually, I mean, it's an abstract nude, but my head was in front of it, so you really couldn't tell. And even if it wasn't, you wouldn't be able to see what it was. But when we were doing the HUR at home, my boss specifically said the interview is not, it was informal. And so she wanted something that was casual. And that's about as casual as it's going to get. If you have pictures of, family or what have you in the background. But again, and I think Elsa, spoke about this, I just don't want a whole lot of folks, up in my house like that unless, post-COVID, I invite you in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I know Elsa's like, this guy's crazy. But,
no, I agree. That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a set. Like, you have to look at your home like a set, and it's not the entire house that you need. If you're shooting tighter, there's no need for everyone to have a whole, I mean, we're cool, we're family here, but not everybody needs to see your entire home. If you want to have a diversified, backdrops for different occasions, fine. But again, they are sets. That's your corner. That's your second corner or wall. Maybe your third one if you want to get really feisty, whatever. Same rules apply. That lighting needs to be on point. You need to look good. And I can't stress this enough. Don't get too innovative about checking everything in your backdrop, because you never know what you might be showing. One of my clients had her social security number on some document, like a bill or something. And, that's what happens when you start getting too innovative, you get too fancy. Like, again, Teddy Riley, you're doing the most. Don't do the most.
I will say this too.
It's simple.
Another thing is that our viewers are not dumb. So
they're looking for
because
food.
you have said Emmy or have said Murrow, when you displaying them all behind you, it's just so happy face. We know that's not a
Grammy right here.
Congratulations.
Right here.
Now tell me about
really good.
You know what I mean? So like, you are an Emmy award-winning, Murrow award-winning. Don't be putting that stuff in the back. They know. Google you. And so many times I'm like, bless your heart.
And this has been, funny. This is not an issue, necessarily for, me, but I saw this on TV Spy where, one of the reporters was doing something about
her husband.
Hair, and of course her husband was in the background in the shower.
Like,
or if you have, like Elsa, she's got a little one, and I don't know how little is little, but sometimes, little, they're terrible. Yeah, that's a crazy sixes, but they can show up at any time, and the biggest issue that I have, and I got a delivery from Amazon yesterday, right before I went on the air, and the guy rung my doorbell.
That's the worst.
Can't win.
So
the worst I've ever seen, and I know it was from the BBC, I'm pretty sure. A guy was doing an interview, and again, we interview people all the time and tell them to set their laptop and we play tech support. Please take the responsibility of kind of peeking around the background of whoever you're interviewing. Hopefully you can see it, and sometimes you can't. But remember that viral photo of the guy who had like an adult toy on top of the refrigerator? So things like that. It's like tighter is better.
Yes.
And we can't control what people might have.
Harold.
Wow.
Y'all are
Crazy.
horrible people.
All I have is that's a Baltimore artist, Poncho, so I'm good.
Oh my God.
I'm good.
I have questions.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Sorry, Brandon. Never mind.
Whoever got a question, I'm done with y'all. Y'all know what I was trying to say. I hate y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Do you remember how crazy Thanksgiving was at my house?
Yes. I'm just saying, look out for your interviewees. They may inherently have things in their backdrop that are inappropriate or just do not speak well of who they are. Be aware. Like if this is your, like I'm looking at Dave right now. So Dave, if this is your like sports cove and cave, and this is where I talk sports and stuff. All right, keep it that way. If you happen to go and get a new, bobblehead that's a little inappropriate for TV, then don't put it out there. Ta-da.
Yeah, no Dallas Cowboys bobbleheads when you're doing Ravens interviews.
Oh man, we don't care about that.
See?
Oh, you think they don't, do you?
Sorry.
Okay, there's Benet. I was wondering when she was going to stop going.
No big
Look,
speed. No
she's
big
been
Steelers
hiding.
posters. When,
I'm juggling too much right now.
But we're more fun.
What is she looking at? I'm like,
We are definitely more fun.
I'm here. Here I am.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wait a minute.
We got Karen now. Questions, concerns?
I was going to ask, did Jessica, was it Jessica?
Yeah, sure.
Who had the question?
Did we get? Yes. Okay. Let's see.
Jessica, can we hear her now?
Is she back? She's not back
Who's
yet.
that?
Try it. All right, Jess. Try it.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Sorry, I was having technical difficulties with my laptop, but thank you to all y'all panelists for hosting this. I'm really taking a lot of great notes. Thank you for telling me about my lighting. I know I'm in a room to where I only have 2 lighting sources. One is a back lamp that I have, and the other is my window. So like, and I also have a ring light, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like when y'all were talking about the whole, you can see everything on my face. Like I wash my face really good, but you can still see little bumps or something. And so I'm trying to figure out, like, what do you think I should do? Should I like?
Why don't you try it now? Try putting.
Yeah.
Are you on a laptop right now?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Try putting your laptop the way David did, where your laptop is at the window and the window is facing you.
The window is facing your face.
Yeah, so the window is lighting you. So you're looking out the window, but your laptop is against it. If that makes sense. Is there a table there?
Okay. Well, like, no, because my, let me show you.
Already, that's better.
Already, that's so much better.
Yeah, that natural lighting is so much better.
So you don't have to go all the way to the window, but what you just did right now was like 800 times better.
Oh, that's so much
It's
better.
like 2 different people.
So pretty now.
And then just your background. Your background is easy. If you close that door, take off what's on the wall there. I'm not even mad at the window or the.
Where did she go?
Like,
you know what I mean?
I have all this, yeah.
That's what I'm saying, but that's an easy fix. You close that, take off what's on the door, you take off what's on the dresser, and there you go. You're set.
Do you have some?
What's that coming out of the top of her head?
That's a towel on the door.
Yeah. Do you have somewhere that you can put your laptop or sit your laptop on?
I would have to sit it on my lap because I'm sitting at the desk right now.
Okay.
Do you have a stool?
Do you have, do you have like a stool, a chair, a table, something you could bring into your room?
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
I have like an eating table. It's a little low, but
that's fine.
No, do you have like old Amazon boxes or any kind of boxes laying around that you could pile up, or any books? Because let me show you this. I have tons of, this laptop right now is sitting on like 2 Amazon, it's on a table, like a coffee table, but I have 2 big Amazon boxes on top. And if I need to raise my laptop, I just add some extra boxes or add even books to get that laptop at eye level. So no matter how low your table or stool is, if you have, like I said, boxes laying around the house.
And you know what's a good background? Your desk, because it's unobtrusive, and it doesn't compete perhaps with the subject matter. And so, just like Karen said, if you just sit, they're not going to see the boxes where your laptop is. And if your desk is your background, you know, you may want to neaten it up or what have you. But if all they're seeing is like a desktop and stuff on your desk, it's not. It's a working interview. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
But lighting is important. Lighting is very important.
I don't think this worked. I was trying to zoom in again so I could. Oh wait, yeah. There's double me. Hold on a second. Video. Okay, let's double me again. Yeah, let's me. Okay, so if you see, I've got a hat box, I've got a shoe box, then I have a stand that I typically would just have for the laptop to begin with, then the laptop. Okay, so I've finessed this. When I'm outside, I've got a tall stool that I have to put this on top of this on top of this. It's a little rickety. You just want to make sure it's not, want to make sure it's level. But no one can see that. So if you have a bootleg setup, who cares? As long as your out product is good.
Yeah.
So it ain't fancy over here, guys. What was it?
I can't unmute myself. Sorry, you have to MacGyver everything. And to put it in layman's terms so it's not like too confusing and throwing too much at you guys, just remember that normally there's a camera in front of you to take your video and your photos, right? So you know you hate it when people take photos of you looking upward because you look fat. It makes everybody look fat. I don't care how skinny you are, you look fat. You've noticed everyone else takes images downward or straight on. You look better that way. So you're just trying to create the tripod, but you don't have a tripod. You're trying to make that picture higher so that it's meeting you. So right now it is your laptop or it's your tablet or it's your phone. The key thing is just because it's your phone does not mean it has to be down here. You're now making your phone into your camera, which means it needs to be closer, to frame you well, but also needs to be more at eye level, if not a little bit above eye level.
And remembering to clean your screen because constantly, because we're touching it. It's our phone, so we're touching it. Our laptop, even when we're putting it down, our thumb might press it. So it might be good one time and then the next interview it's not. So constantly having that soft cloth and telling your subjects to the people that you're interviewing, because again, they do not know. I mean, their lighting's off, their thumb has hit the camera lens 17 times. It's bad. So we have to be the ones that are helping them in real time so that our end product looks good.
I think Maria had a question. Maria, you had a question about tape, live to tape, or what did you go over tape to live again? I'm not sure I understand this. What do you mean by going over tape to live to segment? Where are we going here? Let me unmute.
Hold on. Yep, got it. I'm
go for it.
Taping a segment to air live, like on Facebook, like.
You mean live to tape?
Kind of like Roland does.
Live to tape.
You mean producing a whole show? Because I mean that's pretty much what I mean. I'm confused. Like, is it?
You know, like when he shows up on Facebook Live, when Roland Burton shows up on Facebook Live, it says Facebook Live, but we all know it's a tape.
No, it's not. Roland's show?
Isn't he broadcasting from
Roland? My husband's been doing Roland's show. That's not tape. That's live.
But then it replays late at night, so I know he's not.
Yeah, but that's
replays tape.
Yeah, just like any video
time
that's on Facebook. I mean, you can pull it up after it's done live.
Right, but it still comes up saying live. And then there are some segments, though, I think that he does tape. But in general, if you want to tape a segment to broadcast live on Facebook, how do you do that?
I don't think you can.
No, I mean, you do it live, and then when it's done, it will come up again as someone would request it if they're on. So if you did something, if this was live now on Facebook, an hour from now, it would come back up again. You would just have to, I guess, go to BABJ's Facebook page, and it would be there.
I think I get it. I'm sorry. I think now I finally understand. So like, yeah, you did the show before. You want to have it run in real time, not just upload it and people watch it whenever, but watch it together, like watch party-ish. I kind of got the impression that somebody is feeding it from their desktop into like it's almost like you're creating like a bootleg, I hate to say it, like it's viewing on one side and then it's going straight on to the social media network. I don't know what app might be involved in that, but it seems kind of like I've seen that before because people have been putting movies on Facebook and say, let's watch this together. And I'm like, they're just running it off of like a TV or something. The quality never is that great from what I've seen. Also, the churches are running, again, have you noticed like on Sunday mornings, the churches are running their services? And we know that obviously the first service is just being reran again and again and again. Is that what you're kind of pointing at?
Well, no, okay, so that's a good example. So for example, my church in LA, they are doing, they come on live and it says live, the live light is on, but it's actually taped the praise team Tuesday. They took a previous sermon the bishop preached and packed that in. They've got an intro and an outro.
Brian.
They've got all of that into one show, but it shows live.
Not
so
to
that once it's done, you can't go back and replay it.
I'm going to cut you off because Brian does this. And it's not calling on him because he was driving. But Brian,
yeah, I'm good. So I actually just came from my church doing what you're trying to do. Generally what I do is when you upload a video to Facebook, it gives you the options to publish now, schedule, or premiere. And you select premiere. So then what will happen is on the side part, it will say live, but really it'll say premiere in the top left corner. And it will be as if it's live. So when I get home, I'm going to edit, and my service will edit premiere tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Oh, that boy good. That boy good.
Something new today.
All right, we're gonna bring Brian back next month to talk about how to premiere your stuff on Facebook, yo.
That's right.
Right.
And Brian, can I have a fry since you were at McDonald's?
I
know. My kids might fight you for that.
Go back and get more.
Did I get all your
I'll take the Filet-O-Fish. I'm a Big Mac.
You can tell. You can tell.
I'm gonna pay Brian for this delivery he's doing.
What you say?
I said I hope they're gonna pay you, Brian, for all these deliveries that you're gonna be making with all these orders that are going on right now.
I know, right?
Well, Uber Eats loves me.
All right. Do we have any other questions for our people? What I tried to bring up was about the animals, Karen. We had a cameo from Elsa's dog.
Oh. Yes, I have a dog, and that has been difficult. He's sort of lazy though, so if I just put him in the room, he'll lay. But if someone comes to the door, or if he thinks there's activity, he'll come on down. So I have had to sort of like sequester him somewhere else when he's sleeping.
Because didn't you have a cat, Karen, or something?
I do, and unfortunately that has not worked. I can lock him in the bedroom, he'll scratch on the door, cry. I've done interviews at my kitchen counter, and he will literally walk across on my laptop in front of the camera.
They don't care.
So that's a challenge that I'm learning to deal with as well.
That'll be like the draft last night. One of the coaches' dog got at his computer when he stepped away.
See, America ain't ready for this work remote thing.
Yeah, that was Bill Belichick.
He did that on purpose, I'm telling you.
You think so?
Okay,
right here.
I am totally gonna wrap this up since y'all are good for that part. I'm gonna try to speed through the business part. So let's give a round of applause and a thank you to our panel.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elsa. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Harold. We appreciate y'all.